Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Class Zero Soldiers Podcast, Episode 2. I'm your host, Zer0.exe, but you can call me Zero, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, SoldierByNight, aka Soldier. What's new with you, Sol?
Nothing much. How about you, Zero?
Yeah, just same old. Just chugging along in Elden Ring, getting pretty close to the end, and just enjoying every minute of it.
I'm going there next. That's the next step after Legends Arceus. And I'm excited for it. I was actually thinking about booting it up tonight, but I kind of want to give myself like more than 2 hours, if you know what I mean, just to start the game.
Yeah, because I'll be honest with you, my first 2 hours was just spent entirely in the character creator. So you could definitely get lost before even entering the game itself. So definitely want to reserve some time because even once you get past building your character and you get into the world, you'll do a couple things and you'll realize 5 hours have passed. It is a very dangerous game in that regard, but I am super excited that you're going to start it soon. I can't wait to talk about it with you, man. It's going to be fun.
I'm excited just to be able to even dabble in the kind of multiplayer aspects of it too. That'll be kind of fun. But I don't know if it's crossplay. Is it crossplay?
It is not cross-platform.
Oh no. Well, yeah, because I have the PS5 version, but it should still. You have the PS4 version, right? Or is it the Xbox version?
Yeah, I've got it on Xbox.
Okay. But that's awesome. Very good. I'm excited to share when that time comes. What do we have? What do we have today? What's going on?
So we got a interesting mix of good and bad. A bit of a roller coaster here. To start off, we're gonna have to start with the bad news. Unfortunately, one of Nintendo's top mobile games, Dragalia Lost, and my current gacha of choice, is going to be shutting down later this year. So just another feather in the cap of everyone who argues against games as a service. This one's going the way of the dodo bird. Once they finish the main campaign in July, they're going to go ahead and shut down the servers at an unspecified time after that. So we will at least get a conclusion to the story, which is nice because it's actually got a really underrated story in my opinion. I love the writing in the game. It's been a fun ride. It's just sad that like
Yeah,
all good things must come to an end, and Dragalia Lost is ending sooner than I'd like.
that is sad. It's going to be lost, and hopefully not forever. Um, I'm hoping that they do something to preserve the content. I mean, it sounds, like you're probably not the only one that really loves, the story and maybe some of the characters and music and has followed it for so long because it's like a different experience when you play a game like that.
Yeah, it's been going strong for I want to say 4 years now. It's been going for several years, and it made them a decent amount of money. It's not like they're going bankrupt from Dragalia Lost or anything, but it's definitely not the fat coin purse that Fire Emblem Heroes is. So maybe they finally decided that it's time to move on. When you mentioned that they preserve it in some way, my personal hope and dream, and a lot of others share the same sentiment, is that maybe they somehow fashion this into a standalone Switch game and the gotcha elements and all of that, instead of waiting for daily missions and things like that, it could just make a way for it to earn all of that stuff in game. I've always said that this is a game that would absolutely benefit from button controls. I would love to play Dragalia Lost with an actual button control scheme. So fingers crossed, and I would not be too upset if they announce, maybe at E3 that that's the plan. They're going to make a Dragalia Lost Complete Edition or something, and that would be awesome. I would love that.
I can't remember. Is Dragalia a turn-based game?
No, it's actually an action RPG.
It's action.
It's an action-based system, so you can tap to do an attack, or you can press and hold to do like a charge attack, and you release it, and you do your charge attack. Think of it kind of like, I'm trying to think of like what would be a good. It's kind of like 2D Zeldas. It's a top-down-ish kind of view. They're like chibi 3D models almost with really nice cell shading, which they updated later in the game's life actually to look a lot better. But that's
Yeah,
kind of the gameplay loop of it. It's kind of like Zelda.
that's neat. I like to think that some of the people that played the game in their freshman year, are kind of seeing it off maybe on their way out of high school or something, like just the different generations that end up playing games like this, where we see it from where we're at, and then they have like this whole maybe like deep connection to the game, and hopefully there is some preservation, like you touched on there, whether it comes as a Switch game or something, maybe even like a sequel or something, where they kind of do something kind of cool. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a possibility. It's developed by Cygames, and they've done that. They've done a sequel to their own games before.
Oh,
So, I
nice.
mean, it's definitely not unprecedented for them to do something like that. That would be cool. I think a complete package in like a Switch game would probably be like the absolute best ideal scenario. So I'm really hoping that's the route they go. It's had a lot of content. We're at 26 chapters as of the end of the life across the 4 years since it came out in 2018. So it's had a long life. So I mean, it's not like it was cut short. They're at least letting them finish the story, which again I really liked. So we'll at least get a conclusion to it before everything goes dark. But fingers crossed. And this is kind of one of those facts of life when it comes to these games as a service. I know a lot of gamers are really tired of this model. EA and Ubisoft have been following that type of model for a while for even like AAA retail releases. A good example of that would be like Gran Turismo 7. So it's a retail release. It's not free to start. You do have to drop the 60, or I think this one's a $70 title, and there's a lot of stuff in game with the microtransactions and content updates over time. What do you think about it?
Yeah, it's definitely kind of murky. It's not a good look, especially when you're competing with the Forzas that are out now, and having Game Pass first off give you access to it for $1, and then realizing you don't need to really pay much more to win cars and gain credits, and sure, you can put your money into it, and I think that's a fine option. I think options can be good to have a lot of the time, but I understand when they're taken away in order to streamline an experience. But when you're developing a game for a massive audience of people who have been playing all of your chronological titles since the beginning of PlayStation, it's just been a rocky start with just crashes and overall, I would say the biggest issue really being having to kind of come out of pocket for a lot of this stuff when it comes to winning the cars and unlocking those. Like, there's just a really tall paywall where it's not just like, hey, play the game and unlock the characters. And I can understand games like Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Fighters, Fighter Z. Where you have to pay a pass or per character or something like that, and I think that's understandable. It's a model that's kind of like gray depending on how you look at it. But even the Smash like passes were kind of like that, where hey, you waited until it was done with the rollout and then you went for it, or you just bought who you cared for. But with GT7, I don't know. There's just a lot of foggy communication between development, like the game not being completely finished and having lots of frame rate issues here and there, depending on the mode that you're playing in. And I don't know, it just seems like a huge, big missed opportunity because it's a Sony IP.
Wasn't there also a big outage too? I was reading here about like it was offline for like 30 hours, and even though it's a single player game, you have to be connected to the server to basically play the main game modes in it. So I mean that's also another aspect of these games as a service where we'll give you some of the experience now and trickle in the rest over time. Where a lot of people just want to be able to pop in a disc or a cartridge and just that's it, play the game, and not have to worry about anything else. A complete experience when you take home the game from the store.
It's not too much to ask when you're paying $60, $70 for a game to have to be online. I know I kept looking everywhere for that, wondering if like the version 1.0 of the game maybe doesn't have that. Like, was that a patch? Because I know, game reviewers and people online that are just streaming and things like that before the game comes out, I understand that they played the game and it actually had really raving reviews.
Yeah, it did well. I think it's GT7 is like an 89 on Metacritic or something like that. Yeah, it's 87.
And it does look fun, and I would give it a shot one day, but I don't want to have to be connected to the internet all the time or not have to be involved in that way, I guess. But yeah, there's just a lot that needs to be fixed.
Sure, and if it's getting an 87 on Metacritic right now in the current state it's in, you can only imagine it's going to get a lot better as the game goes on and as they add more content to it. It's just it's a very sticky subject when it comes to things like this, where it's you're paying a pretty big entry fee for a game like this, and we talked about Forza Horizon 5 a little earlier, where that's day one Game Pass, so you don't have to. There's no barrier to entry, and as far as I know, I don't think there's any type of microtransactions or server things with that game. I think it's a truly single player experience. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, it is. You just get in there, create your character, and you're off to the races. And I do like the open world aspect too.
I was just about to say it's an open world racing game on top of
You don't get that with Gran Turismo, but it is a different experience. I
it.
understand
Right.
the crowds. It's not like I know they're different fans.
It's not just car game, same as other car game.
Exactly. I mean, it's all just greed at the end of the day. And I mean, like, even something that doesn't have as good quality, because you think, okay, well, look, it looks amazing. Gran Turismo has always been consistent,
Oh,
so
for sure.
I'm sure everything else will fall into place. But then you have something like Babylon's Fall, for example, where you're like, oh,
Oh God.
I think they announced it. What is it like? I think it was like 2018 or something.
Yeah, it had a long dev cycle. It took a while to actually get here.
I think it actually, wait, was it 17? It might have been 2017. We got like an announcement and then it went dark for a while.
E3 2018.
Was it? Okay.
So it's been 4 years.
That's a long time. But I mean, it didn't look amazing, but it looked kind of cool because we knew that Platinum was behind it. So we were like, oh, neat. It's a Platinum game with Squeenix supporting it. Let's see where it goes. And then it turned into kind of a pay to play sort of game, and I don't know if that was the best for that.
You just said something very interesting too. It's developed by Platinum Games, and it's being published by Square Enix. We've already had a hit game recently, well, relatively recently, come out with that exact layout, and that's Nier Automata, and that game was a masterpiece.
Good point.
One of the better games of the generation. So just putting those two names together, Square Enix and Platinum Games, you should have a recipe for a very successful game. But on top of the game itself just being very mediocre in terms of the gameplay, the whole game as a service and the microtransactions bog it down even further. We're talking about how good Forza and Gran Turismo did despite the issues they had or the structure of the game. And those are still 87 and 92 on Metacritic. Here we got Babylon's Fall. It's sitting at a 40 from the critics and then a user score of 2.2. It's just, any way you look at this game, it's just not a good product.
It made me kind of sad thinking about how it's slightly changed after it going dark for a while. So I kind of wonder, like, maybe there was something really cool there at one point, like as a single player experience where you could look forward to going through a story and, maybe it could be fun in that way. And then it has all the other aspects on the side where it's like, this is the main dish. But I imagine it upset people, that were working on the game. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're going to go this entirely different direction, by the way. Sorry. And then, maybe things get cut. And I mean, the quality of that game is awful.
Doesn't look good. Doesn't play good.
PS3 and 360 stuff look better.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's just a litany of reasons why it's not a good game, and the game as a service was just kind of cherry on top of the failure sundae. It's just another reason not to touch the game, and I'm sure when sales data comes out, it's not going to be very good. And I thought I read somewhere too that originally this was supposed to be one of those single player types of games, and Square Enix stepped in and said, well, we want to build this as a game as a service. We want, that continuous revenue is so enticing, that everybody wants to be able to just say, hey, let's just let this keep making money, because it's a lot easier to develop content for a game that already exists than it is to make a brand new game. So it's a more profitable model for sure, but you have to make a good product in the first place that players are going to want to continuously support throughout its lifespan. And sadly, Babylon's Fall is not it. We definitely need more single player, fully contained games. And speaking of, we actually got an announcement of another big open world RPG recently announced.
Oh,
Yeah, this was a kind of an under the radar announcement here, but it's personally got me very excited. It had a trailer and everything. One Piece Odyssey was announced by Bandai Namco, developed by Ilka, who handled the very polarizing Diamond and Pearl remakes, but I feel like there was an element of crunch there and directives from Pokemon Company on what they wanted. So I feel like they might have had their hands tied
yeah.
with that in terms of the content and what they were able to do for it. But the main deal with the One Piece Odyssey is it's an open world RPG, and while they don't directly show like user menus or interfaces, there's a lot of similarities to it and Dragon Quest XI. That people were basically saying it's Dragon Quest XI skinned with One Piece characters, which, if that's what it turns out to be, sign me up. That is amazing, because Dragon Quest XI was an amazing game. I love the One Piece franchise, and it's definitely a game that could use a good game. They've had a pretty rough track record of games in recent years outside of the Warriors games, because those are always solid if you're a Warriors or a Muso fan, but
Yeah.
things like Unlimited World Red and World Seeker were very disappointing. So this could be the game to turn it around. It looks great. It's going to come out later this year, so we don't have an exact date or anything, but it's at least going to be sometime this year. And I think it's great that it's going to have an original story, so it's not going to follow the manga or the anime, so you're not missing or spoiling anything by playing the game, but it's still written by Ichiro Oda, the author of One Piece. So it's an original story written by the author of One Piece.
So it's canon.
Exactly. It'll complement the existing media without directly conflicting with it. And they've already confirmed you're going to be able to play as all of the Straw Hats, so it's not going to be just play as Luffy, which was one of the big complaints with some of the earlier games. And they did announce platforms. It's going to be PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox Series S and X. So pretty much everything but Switch initially. And with the way the game looks, I can understand why maybe they didn't go for the Switch as a platform initially. But you never know. Maybe later on down the line.
The Switch gets it usually
Yeah,
later when it comes to these types of releases, and it's probably for their better interest in sales and all that.
Right. It is coming to Xbox Series X and S, so that's good news. I know a lot of JRPGs tend to skip out on the Xbox platform, so this is absolutely a W for Xbox fans. Looks fantastic. I can't wait to see it. I want to see the actual combat system. Even if it's the exact combat from Dragon Quest XI, I'd still be okay with it.
That's exciting. I like hearing people that are happy about One Piece. I've had a few friends who just, are really passionate about it. It's just a really long show for me. But, I've read like small things like wiki type stuff that weren't too spoilery about the like world and everything. Cause I've been interested, I'm like, oh, there's a reason why people love it and think it's the best, But if this is, kind of a supplement to the entire experience, it could be a good way to like, find some or spark some interest, by playing it, especially if it does really well and, you get to play as all these other characters, and it just sounds like they have the right mind this time when they're making the game, and they're making it for the fans, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And I think it's great that it's going to be an original story. Like you mentioned, it could entice people to get into the rest of the series, or for existing fans, they don't feel like they're retreading the same things they've already seen or read. Because I know a lot of the One Piece Warrior games kind of recap the main events of the story. So it's kind of like all the Dragon Ball games constantly going through
I was just gonna say,
the Saiyan saga and this, the Frieza saga and the Cell saga.
here we go again. We gotta fight Nappa first. That's how that starts.
How many times do we got to see Goku go Super Saiyan for the first time? The answer is as many times as they can produce, because that will always be fire.
For real. I don't know. That's one of the reasons why I didn't play much of the Kakarot. Like I did dip. Can I say this correctly? I did dip my feet in, and I was like, oh, this is what this is about. You kind of fetch quests and you do fights and stuff. But I hope that this kind of has that mentality, but it really just takes off with it, because I know that game was just Kakarot. It's just Goku.
Right.
So.
Oh, and another thing I forgot to mention. So it's original story by the author of One Piece, but the music is going to be composed by Motoi Sakuraba. If you don't know who that is, it's a composer well known for his various contributions to video game series such as Dark Souls and more recently Tales of series. So if you love the soundtracks in both of those series, I personally do. I think Tales of Arise has a really great soundtrack. I mean, this is a recipe for success. They've already checked every box that I want to hear from it, and an RPG with One Piece characters, fantastic music from the Dark Souls and Tales of composer. The author is involved with the story. Like, I can't wait, man. This is going to be fun.
I'm excited.
Definitely an exciting time to be a One Piece fan, and I was one of those people that didn't get into it initially because, like, oh, it's 1,000 episodes. I'm never gonna have time to watch all of these episodes. And my wife and I finally decided to take the plunge, and we started watching it. I want to say 2.5 years ago, and we were just like, well, it's so revered by the fan base that it's got to be pretty good, right? So we started watching it, and before we knew it, we were already caught up, and we're like, dang it, now we've got to wait for more episodes. When it's this good, you're not counting the episodes. Each arc builds upon the last arc. There's nothing that's throwaway. Things keep coming up, and characters, you see them again. So it's constantly building on itself, and in a lot of ways similar to Fairy Tail. That's something I really enjoyed about Fairy Tail, where it was like you could see the progression from arc to arc in terms of like the characters' abilities and their developments and things like that. And seeing like villain characters too. They wouldn't just throw away villains. Like there were some that would come back and be part of the new team of big bads. So that there was a lot of intrigue and things building on it. It's just so good.
It sounds like the formula, they got it right for it to go that long, because I know it's a very long-standing series from the manga point. Like, who knows how many manga there are?
I think it's like chapter 1,040 or so.
That's insane.
Something like that. It's up there. Yeah, it's been running for like 23 years now.
I have a One Piece bookcase.
Yeah, you need a whole case dedicated to One Piece, not just a shelf.
Exactly. That's exciting. I'm happy for just in general, just because it's like it sounds like it's going to be the first game that'll be what fans are proud of, and I think every fan needs to have that one game.
Right. Because again, the Warrior games are solid, but you have to really like Warrior games to enjoy them.
Right.
So I feel like this could definitely reach a much broader audience. And just based on the first trailer, it looks fantastic. I mean, everybody in the Straw Hats looks like their character. It looks really well. The visual style is what reminds so many people of Dragon Quest XI. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised there's some inspiration there. And the One Piece world is just perfect for an open world setting like this. It's just knock on wood. Hopefully they get it right this time. And no more world seekers, hopefully.
I agree. And also, do you know anything about the voice actors? Are they like the ones from the show kind of involved in the game?
I do believe they are using the same voice actors, at least in the Japanese dubbing.
Yeah.
So I do believe they are using the same ones. It would not surprise me. All of the One Piece Warrior games have used the same cast in Japanese, and I think a couple of them use the dub cast for the dub as well, and you can switch between the audio tracks based on what you want. So I would expect that, at least for the Japanese. So that's a safe bet.
And then we can just, forget that Jump Force ever existed.
Oh God, yeah, we won't talk about that. Speaking of voice actors retaining their roles, we have a movie coming up soon where none of the voice actors retain their roles, and that, of course, is the Super Mario movie. They revealed the cast in a Nintendo Direct. Uh, I don't even know how long it's been now. It feels like it's been almost a year.
I think it was 2 years.
Has it been that long?
No, it's like a year and a half. It's not even. I think it was like a year ago, and it just feels like two.
Oh man. It looks like actually September of 2021. That feels like years ago though.
Wait, was that really?
Yeah.
No.
That should tell you though, like that's been the drought of info we've gotten on this thing. They revealed the cast and some of it was pretty wild. We got Chris Pratt as Mario. We got Jack Black as Bowser, which I am actually excited to hear. That has the potential to be the best casting. Charlie Day as Luigi. Uh,
Yeah.
they mentioned a few others that I can't remember off the top of my head, but those are the big ones. Keegan Michael Key was Toad.
Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong is kind of my
Yes,
my thing.
yes. Seth Rogen is Donkey Kong, and Charles Martinet is also going to be involved. The one voice actor that is confirmed to be a part of it in some way. So I think maybe Wario, that would be cool. Because I don't think
Oh, because he does voice Wario,
he
right?
does. Yeah, he voices all of them. Mario, Luigi, Wario, Waluigi. He does all of them. But since they're showing different casting roles for the main cast, I do not believe Wario was announced as a character. So maybe they let him keep his voice for Wario or something. But that's the thing. All we have to go off of is speculation because this movie is supposed to be out in 2022. And we're already April of 2022. So we're a third of the way through the year already. And what is that, 7 months since the cast reveal? So it's like, where's the trailer? Or where's any information? We don't know what it looks like. We know it's going to be produced by Illumination, who of course are known for the Despicable Me movies, which are great movies. I'm confident they're going to put out a good product.
Yeah.
I know some people don't like Illumination movies, but I think they're good.
Yeah, me too. They're entertaining.
It's crazy. We have no info. We don't know what's happening.
We don't even have like teasers or hints or anything. I'm wondering like how it's even going to take place. Like is it gonna be like kind of like how remember the first Lego movie where wasn't Will Ferrell in it?
I think he was the dad.
Yeah. Is it gonna be like real life and kind of like I want to know that first. I guess that's kind of like my first question is like, okay, I really do want to know what you all sound like as your characters, but
what is the setting?
What's happening? Yeah, exactly. Like, are you guys changing into human like forms, and then like your actors are gonna take, But it's just the voices, right? Or
well, they are voices. It is an animated movie, so it's probably going to be like 3D CG animated movie. But outside of that, there's question marks abound. Could it be like the Sonic movie, for example, where it's like animated characters that are brought to the real world? Like where you see Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, they're CGI in the movie, but
right.
It's in a real world setting with live actors as well. We don't really know what they're going to do with this movie. We just know it's a mostly animated movie from Illumination, and we know the voices. So I mean, I have to feel because Mario is obviously one of the biggest franchises in the world, and especially for gaming. Everybody knows who Mario is. Maybe they're saving this for an E3 reveal. They'll drop the trailer at E3, and it'll be like a late summer, early fall release in theaters. That would be my guess. But we that's all we have is guesses and speculation because we've heard nothing.
Yeah, I don't mean to rush it either. Like trying to think of what it could be and whatnot. And thank you for kind of shedding light on the animation part. I guess I wasn't too clear on that before because I thought, oh man, maybe it is like a mixture thing or like. But at the same time, with that many big known actors, I feel like I hope they have fun. That's really what I hope for.
Right. And there was a lot of backlash too in the initial announcements. It's like, wow, they've got a bunch of Hollywood stars to play these roles when we already had a voice actor established for these characters for years. So there was kind of a negative backlash to that. But I think if it's anything like the Sonic movies, where you have Ben Schwartz as Sonic, Idris Elba is Knuckles, those are different actors, excuse me, and have been previously established for the franchise. But then they also brought Colleen O'Shaughnessy to voice Tails, who is the voice from the games, and kind of mixed them together, and it worked out well. I mean, I've seen the movie now. Sonic 2 is amazing. Idris Elba killed it as Knuckles. I can't imagine anyone else voicing Knuckles now. He just knocked it out of the park.
So good.
Ben Schwartz does an amazing Sonic voice, so it worked. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt because I've seen firsthand that you can have someone else do the characters justice.
Talent is there.
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like if the talent is there and you have passion, you just need the right direction, you know?
exactly. I mean, these are professional actors, so they're good at what they do.
Right.
They're not gonna, have a phoned-in performance like the Last Airbender movie. So I mean, we're gonna get quality from the voices, and Nintendo is very, very protective of their IP. I highly doubt they're gonna let them release something that looks or sounds subpar. I mean, they have to. It's too big to fail.
That's the other problem, right? Is just the instant hype level is, through the roof.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun whenever it releases. And again, if I'm a betting man, we'll probably hear something at E3.
Yeah, I mean, until then, there's plenty to do in terms of gaming, playing, and maybe even catching up on some sales if you have the extra cash to spare right now.
Or even on a budget.
I'd say $20 could probably go you pretty far. Yeah, $20 can go you pretty far.
Absolutely. And again, if you need to game on a budget, you definitely want to look out for these sales. They happen all the time and on every platform. And we've got a lot of good ones this week. What are some of your best finds?
I know you brought up Tales earlier, but the Vesperia Definitive Edition, which I know is different than the original, is on sale right now on the Nintendo Switch. It might be that way for other consoles, but sometimes these sales are shared and sometimes they're not. But I think that's a great deal, especially if it's on the go and you like handheld. I think Tales of Vesperia was very fun. Is it my favorite Tales? No. But it's a good one for $10. I mean,
Wow.
That's 80% off. So that's one that I recommend. And then I brought up Dragon Ball Fighters or Fighter Z from earlier. And that one's also $10 instead of the $60, albeit you do have the passes, and I think there's 3 of those, and
I was just going to ask.
those are on sale. Yeah.
That's the thing, though. For games like those, when they do go on sale, they'll often have a complete edition that's at a reduced price. So if it's $10 for just the base game, you might be able to get the complete 1 and 2 season passes with it for maybe 20.
I actually have an update on that. Just looking into it, it looks like you can get the Ultimate Edition for just $16.49.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
Here's the catch, though. There is a catch. The Ultimate Edition came out when the game came out.
Uh-oh.
So you have to understand that it comes with the first Fighters Pass. So that just tells you that you'd have to get the other 2 passes, but that's still not too bad. Even just starting out, it has come with an anime music pack, which is 11 songs from the anime, and then a commentator voice pack. Who knows what that is, or if you really want it, but that pass is cool.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure those other passes that aren't included, you could probably get for cheap too.
Yeah.
It's a pretty old game at this point. It's still one of the best Dragon Ball Z games out there. And Tales of Vesperia is an amazing game. It runs really well on Switch. Battles and indoor areas all run at 60 frames a second. And then just outside exploration runs at 30 just to keep it manageable. But it looks great. They've touched it up from the Xbox version. It was originally an Xbox 360 exclusive. And it's really, really good version of the game. And that's a 70-plus hour RPG right there, so you will absolutely get your money's worth for $10. I definitely give my personal stamp of recommendation.
Yeah, I want more Tales games. I hope this is. I know that one was an exclusive, so we really needed it for that one.
For sure.
Do you have any favorite items on sale right now? Zero?
Yeah, there's a lot on sale, actually. We mentioned the last podcast about the 3DS eShop closure. In addition to sales on Nintendo Switch and PlayStation and Xbox, there's also a big 3DS sale going on as well. And one of my personal picks, I'm a big JRPG guy, Pretty much the entire Shin Megami Tensei series is on sale on 3DS, and that includes things like Soul Hackers, Devil Survivor 2, Devil Survivor Overclock. Those are all $8 each. But even the main series, Shin Megami Tensei 4 is $8. 4 Apocalypse is $9, which was it's not a definitive edition; it's a direct sequel to 4. So you can get the whole series of Shin Megami Tensei 4 for just $17, and that's again, those are big JRPGs that you'll get tons of value, tons of time out of, and they're just generally very good games. I do believe Shin Megami Tensei 5 is also on sale. If you didn't catch the latest one, which was I don't want to call it open world, but it was a more exploration focused Shin Megami Tensei, and it was fantastic. You can get the digital deluxe edition for $59.49 on the eShop right now. So that's normally $85. You're getting a pretty big chunk off of that, and that includes all of the DLC for the game, including the boss rush where it ends with you fighting Demi Fiend from Shin Megami Tensei 3, which also was remastered. I don't know if that's on sale right now, but again, if you're a JRPG guy, pretty much every Atlas JRPG is on sale on the 3DS, not just the Shin Megami Tensei. Things like Persona Q and Persona Q2, those are both $8 and $10 respectively. Etrian Odyssey, there's a couple of those on sale. You can get 4 for $8. Etrian Odyssey 2 Untold for $8. Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology is $10. That's actually a remaster of a Nintendo DS game. And one of my favorite aspects of that game was that the music was composed by Yoko Shimomura, who is famous for her work on the Kingdom Hearts series. The first Xenoblade Chronicles game, she worked on that. And she also did some work on the Mario and Luigi series. She did a lot of the music for Bowser's Inside Story as well.
She's a legend.
She really is. So I mean, if you see her name on any project, you can already bet that it's going to be fire.
You can listen to her music and be in love with it without ever really knowing where it came from or its context. You know, it's that good.
It is. We've proven that scientifically. When I sent you the grand finale song from Bowser's Inside Story, you were just talking about it before the podcast. Like you listened to that and absolutely loved it.
Love that. It just shows you that some of those companies can really see the talents around them in their field, you know, in that industry, and they go, oh, you know, we have this thing we're going for with this story, you know, because Bowser's Inside Story, not to veer off too much, but it's also like a really great story, and you get to kind of see the villain from a different light. And I think picking Yoko for that was fantastically placed. When you showed it to me, I was like, oh man, they really went for the heartstrings. They got Yoko on this.
Oh yeah, and it's just a solid game all around. You mentioned the story, and it's also got a lot of really great exploration, more closely like the first Mario and Luigi game, Superstar Saga, which was originally released for the Game Boy Advance and then later remade for the 3DS. So the exploration's more akin to that than it was Partners in Time, which was a much more linear game. Honestly, Bowser's Inside Story was my favorite of the Mario and Luigi games. Rest in peace, Alpha Dream. Studio shut down. I'm really hoping Nintendo keeps the franchise alive somehow and gives it to a different developer. I wouldn't mind seeing them give it to Intelligent Systems. They did the Paper Mario games, so I mean they're already familiar with making turn-based RPGs with the Mario franchise. So hopefully we see more from them. But yeah, Yoko Shimomura is a legend, and she worked on Radiant Historia, which is a 3DS remaster of a DS game that's fantastic, time travel based, open-ended story. $10, another fantastic value for your money.
Yeah, if you love Chrono Trigger, this is up your alley.
Thank you for mentioning that. That is absolutely what I would compare it to in terms of just the sprite-based work, just the way everything is presented. It's a very Chrono Trigger-like game.
The endings and stuff, you know.
Multiple endings. Yep.
Yeah, I mean that's stuff that you kind of work toward, you know, like replayability. So it's just cool to have that dynamic. I mean, maybe not all the time, but if you do it right. And you might actually have time travel. I mean, that's a good device to have multiple endings, you know, kind of happen organically. But it's a tricky thing. So yeah,
I agree, and I like the way Radiant Historia handles the time travel and the multiple endings thing. Like if you get to a bad ending, for example, it basically acknowledges that, like, hey, you hit a bad end in the Destiny, and you can basically go back to earlier branches of the timeline and it'll be marked on your little timeline map that, hey, this was a bad ending. This is what happened, and you can move from there. So you can organically explore all the different avenues and pathways without ever like truly ending the game and having to replay it through it again to get like the best ending.
Yeah, it's exciting. I I guess I'm quite excited. I mean, the truth is I really want to talk about Kingdom Hearts, but before we get to that, I do want to show some love with the other sales too, because we've got, the PlayStation Store sales right now. If you haven't played Batman Arkham Collection or any of those, the 3 minus Origins, that's only $8.99 on the PlayStation Store, and that's really great because it's usually $60 digitally, of course. But
can't beat that. That's a lot of game for $8.
Oh, for sure. And again, replayability. Just with all of the content and the voice lines and the plot, everything's pretty
DLC and everything.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Those were really highly regarded games too. A lot of people talk about the Arkham series as one of the best superhero game series out there. I never actually got to play them myself, but I've definitely seen other people play them, and I've seen the respect that players have for that series. So if you like Batman, you like action games, definitely $8 is worth it.
Oh yeah, completely agree. And then you've got some other stuff too. I brought up Kakarot earlier. That one's like about 20. Resident Evil 3 is $15.99. It looks like.
That's the remake, right?
Horizon's $10. Yeah, that's the remake for Resident Evil 3. That's actually the one I don't own, so I might grab that one. That's the only one I have left really to purchase.
I actually played that on the PS1 originally. That was one of the few Resident Evils I played. I heard pretty bad things about the remake. It wasn't as good as 2. I heard they changed a lot of things.
Yeah, which is a little unfortunate because I think Nemesis was the original, right? Like what it came from. Yeah, I'm wondering what went wrong because they did really well with the first one when they remade it, and then for GameCube, and then again when they just kept coming out, and I don't know. I would need to try it. Have you tried it yet?
No, but hey, I mean, if it's on sale, it's definitely a good time to try it out.
Yeah, that's not too bad. Don't know if it's any different with Xbox.
Yeah, that's not a bad starting point if you're interested to see how the remake was. Definitely easier to swallow, jumping in at $16.
I see Assassin's Creed Unity, and I'm like, that should be free, but
no kidding. I'm not a big Assassin's Creed fan, but the one game that I've played to death and love is Black Flag. And I know Rogue was a similar game to it. A lot of people criticized it for being too similar to Black Flag, but to me, that's just more of a good thing. I know there's a collection of that on the Switch that's almost always on sale. I don't know if it's on sale now, but if you do catch it, those are 2 really good open world Assassin's Creed exploration games. You get to drive in your pirate ship, naval battles, explore deserted islands. 2 games for the price of 1. I've seen it constantly on sale for like $25.
Yeah, those are rad. If you haven't played any of the Assassin's Creed games, those are way to go. To just start and play. I mean, you don't have to think about, do I have to play all of them or something? It's like, hey, just choose something that you like, and then go for it. I know a lot of people enjoyed the Origins because of the, Egyptian background and all the lore that exists in the game, because they actually do a lot of research with these games.
Absolutely, and a lot of lore is just tied to actual history. Just an example, there's a lot of stuff with like Blackbeard and Captain Kidd, Assassin's Creed 4. So if you're a big pirate lore fan, you'll definitely get your fill. And one cool thing about it is both of them, they included a lot of DLC that was like exclusive to like the Ubisoft Club on the original releases. A lot of that you could get in game in the Rebel Collection. That's what it's called. It's got both Black Flag and Rogue. It's regularly priced at $40, and that's what it's listed for in the eShop now. And I'm pretty sure it's on the other consoles as well. But if you catch that for $20 or less, which is what I ended up purchasing at when I did decide to get it, that's 2 really good, really big games that are a lot of fun. Really nice action, tons of different weapons to play with. Really, really good set of games.
Super fun.
There's another set of games that we need to talk about that just got a new sequel announced that honestly was kind of a surprise considering how long the development cycle for the 3rd installment was. And of course, you know where I'm going with this. Kingdom Hearts.
What's that?
We got 2 new game announcements, actually. Yeah, what is Kingdom Hearts, right? So the anniversary event just passed a couple days ago, as of this recording, and we got announcement for Missing Link, which is a mobile game, and of course Kingdom Hearts 4, which it's got people talking.
Yeah, when you said, what is Kingdom Hearts? I was instantly going to just blurt out, it's light, but, that's a bit too cheesy. So I ended up doing it anyway.
Maybe the real Kingdom Hearts is the friends we made along the way.
Right? My friends are my power. Yeah, we've got a couple things, like an update to the Union Cross Dark Road continuation for that part of the story, which is like the last part of because the original, all the older games are part of an entire arc, kind of like an anime has arcs. So the previous, all the games that we've played before are all the Dark Seeker arc, which is all surrounded around Ansem and Xemnas and Xehanort, all the Xehanorts, right?
All the X's.
Correct. And then, yeah, this is going to be Kingdom Hearts 4, going to that, which is is it the Lost Masters? Yeah, the Lost Masters arc, which a lot of people might not know if they never played the mobile game. I am hoping, similarly to Dragalia Lost, we get some sort of way to either preserve or move all of that content over, like if they made...
Like a Recoded, for example?
Yeah, but like if they made it kind of, a bit more playable, just like console-wise.
Yeah. I mean, there is precedent. Recoded was a port of a Japanese exclusive mobile game from the Kingdom Hearts franchise, released on the Nintendo DS. Had mixed reception when it came out, but hey, at least we had a way to play that game on a real console. Definitely hope for the same for the new mobile game, Kingdom Hearts, because I'm just kind of done with mobile games. I've been hurt from Dragalia Lost. I don't know if I'm ready for another relationship.
At least Missing Link seems like it could be more action-based. Whereas with the Union Cross Dark Road, it's more kind of like, hey, here's some, like, literally the very beginning of Kingdom Hearts story that we're now touching on with these, the art style they go for is very cartoony, and I do like it. I think it's charming.
Yeah, very picture book-esque.
Yeah, and the gameplay is just the part that, it's a bit more point and click than anything else, and I think that's fine, but it might be able to translate better if it was on console and made that way. But then again, it's fine for what it is. I usually just watch a compilation video. I am that guy. I'm sorry. But yeah, Kingdom Hearts Missing Link seems like it could be a lot of fun. I hope they do it right. I know some people were saying like, oh, it sounds like kind of Pokemon Go-esque, and I'm like, no, I think it'll probably try to, because each of the games that came out on mobile all had a significance. That's kind of like Kingdom Hearts thing. It's like everything has a meaning. And sometimes it goes a little too far, just like in the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer. You have people kind of thinking, okay, is that an ATST over there in Riverbank at the beginning with the little kind of...
Yeah, we got to talk about that, because I am convinced after seeing that we are absolutely getting Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's Endor 2. I'm hoping it is, and if it is, then now we can introduce like the Force and then like light and dark kind of in there. I think it's very fitting for the theme that Kingdom Hearts has, so I feel like it's meant to be.
And you can't even say like, oh, it's too, realistic for Kingdom Hearts to go to. It's like, yo, we had in Kingdom Hearts 2, we went to Pirates of the Caribbean. So I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I know. And some people are like, well, because, this new world is supposed to be unreality, which is like what fantasy characters call actual like nonfiction. Like, imagine if we were fantasy characters, we'd think nonfiction was unreality. So to all the Disney Final Fantasy original Kingdom Hearts characters, where Sora wakes up in the trailer is actually like why they said it's like our afterworld, because it's like almost where you go when you die. Because spoilers, things happen to Sora in Kingdom Hearts 3. and that's why he also looks a bit different too, because now he's like kind of fit to look like this world. But
they've always done that too.
Yeah, exactly.
I know a lot of people were pretty taken aback by his new design. And while I'm sure the final design in other worlds will probably look pretty similar, it's not necessarily a given that that's what he's going to look like throughout the game. I love the new design. I think it looks fantastic. They got rid of his clown shoes though, so rest in peace to Sora's big old goofy shoes. Love it or hate it, it's gone now. So we're moving forward with a more realistic look. Honestly, I think it looks great. My only hope for this game is please bring more Final Fantasy characters into it. I'm not talking Jack from that Final Fantasy Origins goofy game. Like, bring back Cloud and Squall and
You mean Chaos?
yeah, well, there'll be plenty of chaos and darkness to kill in the new game, I'm sure. But man, that was one of my favorite things, is seeing all of like the Disney characters interact with the Final Fantasy characters, and even being part of a story, like a unified story with Final Fantasy characters from different installments. So we're gonna see Cloud, Squall interact together outside of the Final Fantasy lore. I thought that was super cool, and I'm really hoping they do more of that. And for the love of God, please give us a Sephiroth battle. It is not a true Kingdom Hearts experience without a Sephiroth battle.
It's been too long.
It's been too long, man.
When you said unified, my mind had already been thinking of FFX2 and the three, girls' involvement, and I was like, haha, unified,
Hey, I don't think those characters have ever been used in Kingdom Hearts. What, besides maybe Yuna herself, right?
No, all three of them are in 2.
Oh, they are. Aren't they like
Yeah, they're like they almost look like fairies.
That's what it was. Okay.
They're like tiny. Yeah, and they help you with like I forget what they help you with, but it's like you need like an ability or a little bit of the story, but not too much. But I really like when you said, "Oh, I love, the interactions between them," and it's like, yeah, that is pretty fun because it's not ever going to happen, and I think that's the exciting thing when it comes to all these IPs kind of going together like that.
It's almost like somebody greenlit a fan fiction, and Square Enix and Disney were just like, you know what? Fine, let's do it. Let's see what happens. What's the worst that can happen? I always love that concept. Like, it's so silly. The concept of it is just Disney and Final Fantasy together, and it's always been that kind of weird combination that just kind of works. And I just want more of it. I know with Kingdom Hearts 3, they were like, hey, we've built up this world and this lore with all these other characters to stand on its own. We don't need the Final Fantasy characters. And I'd argue, while you don't need the Final Fantasy characters, they definitely add something to the experience.
And especially with Sora now kind of belonging to Disney in a way. Sora represents Disney too.
Yeah, he's owned by Disney.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading about that earlier. Like, that entire copyright for the Kingdom Hearts franchise is owned by Disney. Square Enix are just the developers for it.
Yeah, I think Disney knows though that they wouldn't be able to do it themselves. They know for a fact. If they've learned anything from Disney Infinity.
Oh God.
They probably shouldn't dabble with the mixtures of different IPs.
And I'm sure there's contracts in place. It's like, hey, we reserve exclusive rights to develop the game and certain merchandising rights and stuff. There's all sorts of stuff going on that Disney couldn't just drop Square Enix if they wanted to.
Yeah, it probably just wouldn't exist. And honestly, I'm glad. I know our timeline has its ups and downs, but I gotta say, the fact that we got this announcement this year, that's a big deal, and I'm very grateful for it, because it could have been who knows how long, and I know that it's just a sneak peek, and I'm cool with it being another 2 to 3 years. It's fine. If anything, they taught me how to wait.
We're not exactly starving for games.
As long as it's not 10 years, it should be fine.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we can definitely wait for it. And it'll also be interesting, since we're still kind of a ways away, what platforms it's going to be on. So there's no confirmation on specifically what platform or platforms it'll release on. I mean, PS5 is, of course, a shoo-in. It's guaranteed to be there. Maybe it'll be on the Xbox Series. But beyond that, since it is an Unreal Engine 5 game, potentially they could also make last-gen ports for it if they're still supporting those consoles by then. So maybe we'll see a PS4, Xbox One, or maybe even a Nintendo Switch release. If it's 2-3 years down the line, I've got a feeling we'll probably be working with new hardware from Nintendo by then. So that'll be fun to see what they decide to actually put the game on.
That's a good point. I hadn't even thought of that, really. I was just like, I want it to come out already, but
Right, it's still really early, so that we still have a lot of waiting to go before we get anything else on it. But it's fun to think about. What if they decide just let's make it for everything? Anybody with a console can play Kingdom Hearts, but maybe they'll have a change of heart between now and then where they're not putting all the old games on a cloud version on the Switch.
I hope that never happens again, and I do hope they kind of go back to the drawing board and maybe are working on it on the side. I think one of the biggest reasons why Kingdom Hearts took so long, Kingdom Hearts 3 specifically, was because of all the projects that Tetsuya Nomura had to actually work on at the time, and not even being able to fulfill Final Fantasy 15 the way he wanted to is one of those indicators there, and I'm grateful for Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and I gotta say that's probably the best thing that's really come out of Square Enix outside of, maybe Nier Automata.
I would agree with that. It's a really fantastic game. It's very different from the original, but I think it's great how they did 7 Remake to exist alongside the original version of 7. It doesn't make it obsolete. They're two very different experiences on their own.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. That and Nier are absolutely some of the best games they've made in the last decade.
I agree.
But looking towards the future, we have, of course, Final Fantasy 16. We're going to get more info on that soon. Maybe at E3 even. Kingdom Hearts 4, we'll get more info on that. Maybe at E3 we might get some. I don't think so. Maybe E3 next year. But the other thing I wanted to point to, you just reminded me of this. We talked a little bit about the NVIDIA leak last time and how there was a lot of unconfirmed games that have since been confirmed being in development. Chrono Cross remake, Live Alive, the HD2D remake of that game, that was part of the list. So, I mean, this is a legit list of games that we can expect now. And one of the other games on that list, besides, of course, Kingdom Hearts 4, which, again, just it's the gift that keeps on giving with this leak. One game that I am so personally excited for is Final Fantasy IX Remake.
That's been talked about. I've been feeling the rumblings, hearing the rumblings,
That's a game that would absolutely be amazing with the remake. Even if it's, more action-based like 7 Remake, it could definitely work. But that's a game I would love to see reimagined and expanded on. It's one of my favorite Final Fantasies for a reason. It's pretty much the embodiment of what a Final Fantasy should be, with the fantasy elements and the medieval type of stylings and airships and floating islands. And, it's got all of the elements that I love about Final Fantasy.
I love the art style,
Yes.
and I love how I can almost tell what kind of person you are if you really like 9.
It's such a traditional Final Fantasy.
That's the thing about all of them, though. Not to get too philosophical, it's like the thing about all of them is that they have their own identity.
Mm-hmm.
So whichever one you gravitate is a little piece of yours too,
Right, and because they are all so different, especially in the PS1 era, each one is so drastically different from the other. Whereas 7, it did have a lot of the fantasy elements, but it also had like the steampunk thing with Midgar, and then Final Fantasy 8 definitely took a more realistic approach to like the characters and the character development. Even still had that fantasy, and then 9 just kind of went back to its roots in a way where it was just more traditional medieval style fantasy. And oh my god, let me tell you, man, if we get a trailer for a Final Fantasy 9 remake, I'll probably go more insane than I did when they showed Xenoblade 3, because that is one of my favorite games of all time. And if they give Final Fantasy 9 7 remake treatment, oh, it's over. It's a done deal.
It's amazing. I'll never forget the day I rented it from Blockbuster and watched the intro and played it on one of our CRTs. I'll be honest with you, I never got to complete the game, but I did enjoy what I played. But yeah, if they did that, I would probably lose it. Not as much as you, but
for sure, it would be an exciting entry to get the remake treatment. We've already had a remaster of it, so the only way it would make sense for that to be in that league is if they're actually doing a full-blown remake. And my one hope for it is that, unlike 7, they make the full game in one release instead of this episodic format Final Fantasy 7 has. That's my only hope. Just give me the full game. Don't make me wait years for another chapter.
It's torture.
It really is. It's going to be amazing if and when it gets revealed, but that's the one thing I want from it. But hey, E3's around the corner, so we're going to get a ton more news about things that are coming up. But
I like how we're saying E3.
Right, and keep a pin in that, because we're going to talk a lot more about E3 next time. We're going to go over things like our favorite E3 moments, the worst of E3, and of course, what other rumblings and leaks that we might be hearing leading up to it as well. It should be a fun episode, though.
I'm looking forward to it. And thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. And of course, thank you all so much for tuning in to Talk Video. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Kraken Skulls Gaming, and hit the notification bell to be notified when a new episode drops. Also, feel free to drop a like, dislike, or maybe even a comment and talk video with us. We definitely respond to any comments. In the meantime, take care, everyone, and happy gaming.
Cheers, everyone.